Hello, M&A Advisor community. Welcome to the M&A Advisor podcast. I'm Roger Argonelda, the creator and CEO of the M&A Advisor. M&A Advisor is the preeminent organization that recognizes excellence, honors achievement, presents thought leadership, and facilitates connections among the world's leading mergers and acquisitions, restructuring, and deal-making professionals. Join me as I talk to the best of the best in the M&A, distressed investing, restructuring, and finance industry. Stay tuned until the end. This is going to be a terrific episode. As the 2024 Leadership and Dealmaking Summit draws near, the M&A Advisor is gearing up for the 23rd and 24th of September for the event to be held at the prestigious New York Athletic Club. The Leadership and Dealmaking Summit centers around innovation, excellence, and strategic leadership in the field of mergers and acquisitions. It emphasizes the importance of visionary leadership, collaborative strategies, and cutting-edge approaches to navigating the complexities of global deal-making. In this regard, we proudly introduce our special guest and thought leader in international mergers and acquisitions, corporate financial advisory, valuation, and financial advisory. Please welcome Charles Botchway of Madison Street Capital. Hey, Charles.
Hey, Roger.
Great. I'm just going to give a little bit of your background, Charles. Charles Botchway is the founder and CEO of Madison Street Capital, where he guides the firm's strategic direction and overall vision. Madison Street Capital has proudly secured an impressive 14 awards from the M&A Advisor between 2015 and 2023, showcasing their consistent excellence in the industry. And before joining Madison Street Capital, Charles served as co-CEO of Houlihan Smith & Company, Inc., where he was responsible for strategy and operations. As vice chairman of the board of directors, he played a pivotal role in developing and implementing the firm's global growth strategy. Charles significantly contributed to the inception and leadership of the investment banking branch of the prominent middle market consulting firm before moving to Houlihan. And Charles holds a BA in accounting from George Washington University and a Master of Arts in leading innovation and change from York St. John
University.
York St. John University in York, England. Okay. I'm familiar with the one in New York, but this is the one in York, England. So sorry about that. Maybe we'll it's all right. We don't edit these. It's all live. It's all
good.
That's all. He holds a Series 79 investment banking license and a Series 24 general securities principal license, and is a licensed operations professional. Charles is a global trotter who has lived and worked in North America, Europe, Asia, and Africa. You have seen the world, my friend. You're a shining figure in our industry and one of the thought leaders in global mergers and acquisitions. And then you'll be at our 2024 Leadership and Dealmaking Summit. Charles, all the listeners are aspiring deal makers, or they're deal makers and sort of aspiring to be where you're at. I mean, you've had a wonderful career at the beginnings of, I guess, Houlihan Smith, and then your own firm. I'm sure they're dreaming of getting to where you are now in your career. So we're looking to share your insights on the beginnings, like your life journey, your career, and experience in global deal making. I just want to really go way back to the beginning. You're at George Washington University, York St. John University in York, England. When did you decide that, okay, I'm going to be in finance and investment banking? When did that happen, and how did that come about?
Actually, it started while I was at the management consulting firm. I was in a business development role. I was a tip of the spear guy who would, land in an entrepreneur's business, do that, qualitative, quantitative analysis of what's going on in the business, what their operations were like, where the strengths were, the weaknesses were, what they could do to improve operationally and their financial management, and then bring in a a set of management consultant implementers behind me to help ramp the business up. And as I worked through that, we started getting a lot of clients who would ask if we could help them raise capital. We'd get clients who'd say, well, actually, I'm thinking about selling the business. Could you guys do this for us?
Yeah.
And we
And
always,
where was this at? This was,
I was in Chicago. I was working for a management consulting firm in Chicago, and we were international. So we were doing business all across the US and Canada.
yeah. What was the name of that firm? Is it still around?
Yeah, they've changed the name and I don't really know what it's called
Yep.
now. It's an alphabet soup now of
Okay.
letters. I remember.
As they all were, right? These were
Right.
a bunch of professionals that like accountants and lawyers, right? Just
Right. But we're serving mostly the middle market and the lower end of the middle market. And they'd asked if we could help them sell their business or raise capital. And the answer was always no, because we just stuck to, management consulting. And the more the stuff happened, the more we thought we were missing an opportunity to serve these clients in totality. And so those conversations kind of started, and there happened to be a few guys in senior roles at that firm that had investment banking backgrounds. So, as the conversations continued, eventually the owner of the firm decided that he was going to actually start an investment banking practice. Now, right around the time that he decided he was going to start that practice, I got the idea that being from Ghana and going back and forth to Ghana a lot, year in, year out, I was usually there. I usually go to Ghana at least once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And
were you born in Ghana?
Yeah, I was.
Okay, so let's even go all the way. I mean, you'll get if we can get back to that's interesting too. So you're just by very nature of where you were born, and were you raised in Ghana as well, or when did you?
Yeah, I moved to the United States in 1986. So yeah, I spent the first 15, 16 years of my life in Ghana.
Yeah.
And that's part of the attraction of doing business internationally. But yeah, as I was saying, I spoke to the owner of the business at that point about let me simultaneously set up an advisory shop as they were starting their advisory shop here in the US, to let me set up an advisory shop in Ghana, because I felt there was a need for businesses there to have access to outside capital. And there was some of it, but not enough of it. And I thought it was an opportunity for us. And I still believe that, that those opportunities still abound, especially in the emerging markets.
Well, that 1980. So that was what year? 1986.
No, this was much later. This was, I want to say, in 1999, I think.
Oh, okay. So you emigrated in 1986.
Yeah, I was 16 years old when I got here. So,
Okay.
no, I wasn't in a place at that point to be having conversations like that.
No, but I mean, even today, a lot of these countries, Ghana, and still need outside capital, right?
Yeah.
The capital formation isn't certainly as mature as it is in the United States. I would presume the United States is probably a model for many, many countries on capital formation. So you were,
and
very early on saying, "Hey, there should be more capital formation in Ghana," right? And they're like,
right.
"Go ahead."
The world. There are other challenges with that, and we'll probably talk about it. But yeah, so I went off to do that. I spent a year there. Quite frankly, the business community there is very hesitant to do business with somebody who's just come in. They like to see people hang the shingle and stick around and be around for a while and get comfortable with them before they do business with them. That's number one. And number two, quite frankly, the owner of the company that I worked for was just really into management consulting and didn't really care much about the investment banking angle, and was just letting us do it because we were senior enough, we were productive enough for his firm that he didn't want to lose us.
Right.
So I didn't get the support I needed to really build the business. And after a year or so, he and I decided we did better together here in the United States. So we shut it down and I came back. When I came back, one of my colleagues was sitting down to speak with the owner to really formalize the advisory business as opposed to the turkey jerky style that it was being managed in because it wasn't really part of the business, and asked me if I'd join him. So at that time, I was actually living in Washington, D.C., and I agreed to join him, help him formalize the advisory business, and packed up and moved to Chicago. And we started building this business doing M&A advisory, corporate finance transaction, valuation work, and it just slowly built from there. And we were the
The
smallest
beginnings
division.
of Madison, was this the beginnings of Madison Street, or was this
No, this is
way before?
still, this is way before. This is still under the
Okay.
management consulting. And again, as I mentioned, the owner of the management consulting firm really didn't care about the advisory business. So
Right.
we didn't get the investments that we needed and the support we needed in order to do the kind of job that we wanted to do. At some point, myself and a few other guys in the management team just got frustrated and just decided we're just going to do something else.
So you've already graduated George Washington University and York St. John University at York, England, right? You
I
already got.
didn't do grad school till much later in my career.
Oh, okay. Got it. All right. So
Um,
what year was that? When did you graduate from
I
George
did,
Washington?
I did grad school. I finished GW in 1991,
Right.
and I didn't go to grad school till 2014, I think, 2013.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
fairly recently.
Yeah, I just decided that I'd reached a place in building my business where I didn't know what I didn't know.
Right.
And in order to take the next step, I needed to learn something else. And I found a program that, again, was focused on leadership and innovation and change. And it just made a whole lot of sense to me. And it ended up working out really well because I learned a lot. Now, to be honest with you, if I'd known how much work it was going to be,
Yeah. Well,
going back to, well, I probably wouldn't have done it. But
hey, deal makers and industry leaders, are you ready to make deal connections, meet like-minded deal makers, and celebrate with the best in the mergers and acquisitions industry? I'm Roger Argonaldo, creator and CEO of the M&A Advisor, and I invite you to mark your calendars for the 2024 Leadership in Dealmaking Summit. This event will feature the prestigious awards gala for the 15th Annual Emerging Leaders Awards and the 15th Annual International M&A Awards on September 23rd and 24th, 2024 at the iconic New York Athletic Club in the heart of New York City. This is your chance to meet with the trailblazers who are shaping the future of global mergers and acquisitions. And this event is a gift that keeps on giving. We are thrilled to honor Paul Aversano, the managing director at Alvarez and Marsal, with the 2024 Leadership Award. Paul's dedication and expertise have set a new standard in our industry, and we can't wait to celebrate his achievements. And the excitement doesn't stop there. Former U.S. Secretary of Commerce Wilbur Ross will be a co-chair of the event and an esteemed featured guest speaker. Be here when we dive deep into the latest trends, strategies, and innovations with Wilbur Ross and the top experts from around the globe. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting your journey in mergers and acquisitions, this summit will change your life and the trajectory of your career. So don't miss out on this incredible opportunity to elevate your game and expand your network. Visit www.maadvisor.com. It's maadvisor.com today to register and secure your spot at the 2024 Leadership in Dealmaking Summit. See you in New York on September 23rd and 24th. The leadership of dealmaking awaits. But Madison Street, you founded in what year?
we started Madison Street in 2010.
So in 2010, and then you started running a global investment bank with a middle market focus. That's hard enough, but then you decide, hey, rather not only am I running and operating and doing deals at a global investment banking firm, let me get a master's degree.
Yeah.
You and you're raising a young family at the time. Did you
Yeah,
let your
it's
partner think you were crazy, nuts?
in
We're all
hindsight,
nuts anyways.
like I said, if I'd known how much work it was going to be in terms of time and managing time, I probably wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize how much it was going to be until I was in it. And once I'm in it, I don't quit. That word doesn't exist in my vocabulary, so I had to plow through it. But yeah, it was worth the sacrifices of time and effort because I learned a lot, and I think it just made me a better leader. So yeah, that was fantastic.
No, that's wonderful. I know we probably skipped over a lot of the detail there, but so tell me about Houlihan Smith. So Houlihan Smith, I believe that company's still around, or did they become part of Houlihan Lokey?
No, so
It's different.
so Houlihan Smith was started by Richard Houlihan and Andy Smith. Richard Houlihan had retired from Houlihan Lokey. He had been skiing and golfing and doing whatever for a while and just got bored and needed a place to exercise his mind. So he started Houlihan Smith, and it was honestly, it was a real small lifestyle company. There were three or four people there.
And you did a lot of valuation work, wasn't that all?
Yes.
Much
Yeah.
all
And
valuation
the
work, right?
focus was more valuation, fairness and solvency opinions. That type of work is really the bulk of what they did. And I joined the pen and brought in a focus on doing corporate finance transactions and M&A transactions. And we grew really fast. We went from 4 or 5 people there when I joined. And by the time I left 5 years later, we were 100 plus employees with offices around the world and really doing a lot of work globally and here in the United States. But yeah,
Yeah. Was that out of where was that out of?
that
Chicago?
was
Was
out of
that?
Chicago. Yeah, that was out
Yeah.
of Chicago.
And does
Uh,
Houlihan Smith still exist? Is that still a thing?
no, it morphed into Houlihan Capital, essentially, is what it is. It happened in, I want to say in 2000, the beginning of 2000. Andy Smith and I were running the business, and we just had different visions of where we wanted to take the company. I wanted to focus on just being an M&A shop, and he had ideas on doing some other things, and we just couldn't reconcile
Yeah.
those differences.
You
So,
you wanted to be Houlihan Lokey, and he didn't want you got yeah,
well, we both wanted the same thing, and just we had different paths of doing it. The
yeah,
services that he wanted to offer, I had no interest in. I wanted to stay focused on just being an M&A shop.
right.
And he wanted to do other things, and we just couldn't reconcile those differences. So we ended up parting ways, and my current business partner and I bought a chunk of the business that we helped build at Houlihan Smith to start Madison Street Capital. And what was left of it was bought by MD Smith and his new partners, and it became Houlihan Capital.
Okay.
And then we just focused on just doing M&A, sell side, buy side, and corporate finance transactions in the beginning, and then they did whatever they did.
Right.
And they're still around doing well and doing what they do, and we're focused on just being an M&A shop doing sell
Yeah.
side work.
Yeah. So let's talk about so from Houlihan Smith, you took part of the team. How many people with your partner did you start with at Madison Street Capital? I guess that was 2010, you said, right?
Yeah, I don't remember the number, but it was a big number. We started
Really? Okay.
day one as a really large firm. The bulk of the team at Houlihan Smith came with us, and in hindsight, that was a mistake, to be honest with you. But
Lot of overhead.
But we built the business, and we figured we'd just pick up right where we left off, and we start with a new name, and everybody's like, "Who the heck are you?"
Yeah. Yeah. Got it. Now
Uh,
you ran. And I presume your address is on Madison Street in Chicago somewhere.
yeah, which is how we started. We're no longer on Madison Street, but
Ah, okay.
it was easy to pick the name because our original address was on Madison Street in Chicago. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we started with a bunch of the team,
And then a
and
number of people confuse you with, Madison Dearborn Partners, and people were thinking that you were, is that part of the calculus and like, here's the brand?
well, yes, to be if we're being totally
Yeah.
honest, we wanted to pick a name that you know sounded like we'd been around forever.
Right.
We'd
Well,
been work.
Madison. Madison
all,
Street has been around forever, right?
all of us had been working together for quite a while. Well, a lot of us have been working together for quite a while, but now that experience really didn't matter anymore. It's a brand new company. Now, the individual experience of the people obviously makes a difference when you're talking to clients, but we're building a new brand, and we just try to pick a name where it would sound like the brand was already established to
Right.
make it a little bit easier to establish that
Yep.
brand.
Well,
Not
you're in
many,
your 14th year now, so, you don't have to work out
yeah,
those.
we're way past that. But to be honest with you, not many people mistook us for Madison Dearborn. Yes. They're in a league of their own.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me, okay, so you're focusing on middle market. Tell me a little bit about Madison Street, how many bankers you have, and your focus is global. So that's a pretty, the world is a big place and just middle market in the US because there are a ton of, there are more, oh, I won't say a ton, but there are more middle market investment banking firms focus on US.
Right.
You chose the focus of, and which is your background, being a global investment banking firm. So tell me wh- what your photo focus is on and how you execute upon that, how many people you have, how your firm is structured.
Okay. There's a total of 75 of us approximately across the firm, operating out of uh, 4 offices here in the US and 2 international. We've got Chicago was where we started, but our HQ is now Austin, Texas, which is where I am. It's just a handful of us in Austin. And then we've got an office in Sarasota. And then we have a satellite office outside of Portland, Oregon. And then we've got an office in Ghana and a small back office in Delhi in India. Our focus when we first started, we were doing 70% capital raises and 30% M&A work, mostly sell side. We do a little bit of buy side work, but we never really enjoyed it. The buy side stuff's a little tedious. We have the capability and the ability to do it because it's kind of the same as looking for active buyers, but with looking for active sellers is a little challenging when you're doing it for somebody else because your idea of what they're looking for is never really matches up 100%. So it can get frustrating when you find what you think are perfect targets and the buyer's not quite feeling it and you got to keep going and going and going. It's easier to get the frustrations to come up on both sides. So we flipped the script, I want to say about 7 or 8 years ago, and decided to focus more on sell side M&A, helping entrepreneurs who built businesses who were looking for liquidity, whether it was just taking some chips off the table or if they just wanted to, just sail off into the sunset and go put their feet in the sand somewhere and represent those entrepreneurs in the transactions of their life's work, to be honest with you. And it's been really good for us. We built some partnerships along the way that have meant a lot to our company in terms of growth and having the privilege of serving certain kinds of clients. We partnered initially with UBS.
Yep.
And then subsequently with Bank of America, Merrill Lynch, and then several of the bulge bracket banks are
Yep.
now formal partners of ours.
Really? That must have been very difficult.
It took a while.
You're basically, are you basically like on their platform or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took a while of vetting and them looking at us and
Yeah.
making sure that we had the capabilities to deliver for their clients,
Right.
and then making sure that our brand was worthy of being associated with them.
Yeah, and you got to execute. So I would
Right.
presume that you did a few deals with them, right? And then you already proved yourself and then got on their platform. You don't just walk in and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, we exist," right?
Yeah. So we've been working with those banks, and what they do is obviously when a client of theirs comes to them and says, "Will you sell my business for me?" If it's too small for their bulge bracket
Right.
bankers, they recommend one of the
Yeah.
partners that we have, or a
And so,
couple.
what do you define your sort of your ranges and your sweet spot of deal?
So we
Besides
consider
growth.
ourselves We like to work the lower end of the middle market. And we define that as companies with $250 million of revenue and below. And the floor for us is 10 million in revenue and 2 million in EBITDA. Although really we prefer to work with companies that are 3 to 5 million EBITDA and up. That's the floor. And the reason the floor is 10 million in revenue is simply because that's typically where you start to find 2 million EBITDA companies. As a firm, we're industry agnostic, but our individual managing directors all have certain sectors that they like to spend their time in.
Yeah.
Although you
Let me talk about the deal. Let me talk a little bit about the deal focus and then, or the deal size and deal focus, and then about your team. Those numbers sound right as far as US companies. Like there's you'll find quite a few of those sizes, but when you get outside of the US, I would presume those would be larger companies over there, right? So 2 million, even
well,
2
it
million,
depends. It depends on where you are.
Ghana, certainly, right? If you're doing 3 million US in Ghana, that you're a big company, right?
Uh,
Am I wrong there?
yeah, yes, that's a decent sized company in Ghana if you're spitting out 3 million in EBITDA. And there's some that are significantly larger than that. Obviously, there's a ton of mom and pop shops. You find the same thing in England where there's a lot of mom and pop shops, but then there's a decent amount of lower middle market companies that are better than that.
Right.
And
So
then,
our lower mid market or your low end of the lower middle market could be higher internationally. So what would the breakdown of sort of more, you know, deals done internationally? And then maybe I'll also get your breakdown of how many firms are you selling international versus how many firms you are internationally based, you're selling into the US, right? So maybe you want to talk about that breakdown as well.
yeah, so, um,
I'm sorry to go all over the
it-
place. I just
no,
find it
no,
very interesting how you're
we fine. It's just a conversation.
yeah.
Yeah, 85 to 90% of what we do is between Canada and the US, and then the rest of it is international.
Okay.
Last year, we sold a company for a client the company's based in India. Now, technically, the corporate headquarters is here in the US. I
Right.
think it was Georgia or something. I don't remember exactly. But all the operations, all the employees, everything, all the money is made in India.
Right.
And
And all the clients are
all over the world.
okay, all over the world.
The clients are all over the world, some of them in India, but clients are all over the world. But
The owners are here in the US.
yeah, and the owner was an Indian American gentleman. He also spent a lot of time in India. And his company, if memory serves me right, was 150 million in revenue.
US.
Yeah, in US. And there are a lot of, especially in India, there are a lot of companies like
Yeah.
that in that 50 to
Is it a
300 million
business process outsourcing type of business? Yeah.
across factoring, you name it, just by the size of the population and the
Right.
fact that the economy is dynamic, you're going to find a lot more of those. We've helped a
It
large,
makes sense. I don't mean to it makes sense. 80 to 85% of what you do is Canada, US.
right,
So lower end of the middle market, you can handle that, right?
right,
I mean, that makes sense. So about 10 or 15 to 20% are non-Canada, non-US. And
right.
is most of that 15%, is it mostly sales between non-US to non-US, or is it non-US, US? There always a US/Canada component to it. And I always say that Canada, even though you know, even though we say it's another country, people don't realize it is, right? It's,
Right,
you know,
right. I mean, technically, you do a deal in Canada and you're from the US, it is an international deal.
right. Correct. Correct. That's what we tell people. We always say, "Oh, we don't do any international deals if they're going to nominate for the international M&A awards." And invariably, I always say, Did you do a deal in Canada?" "Oh yeah, we do that all the time." I'm like, Canada is
Is
another
it
country.
right.
Although I
Yeah.
do say, and I'm joking. So if this podcast ever goes anywhere, and other people hear it, I think rather than George Bush invading Afghanistan, we should have just went across and invaded Canada and paid them billions of dollars, and no war could have been fought, and they would have taken that. And we
Yeah,
would
I have a few Canadian friends that I joke with that the US has already taken over Canada. They don't even realize it because I don't know the last time you were in Canada, but when you go to Canada and you're coming back,
yeah.
you go through US customs in Canadian soil.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah. The,
That's how we are.
in the Canadian airports, they've set up US customs and their officers working for the US government asking the immigration questions in Canada.
Right.
And I'm like, how do you guys allow this to happen? Where the US is running your customs in your own country. So we've already taken it over firing a single shot.
Hey, that's the beauty. That's the beauty. But it is another country. They do have another currency, right? And you got to have a different passport. So let's just go back to of the 15 to 20% of deals, are they all non-US
Most
or
of them have
cross
some
border?
sort of most of them have some sort of
Cross border.
US or Canada component to it. We've recently helped a client buy a business in Chile to add to as part of his growth strategy. We're assisting a client who's got a division in the Philippines that they're trying to divest themselves of right now to sell that business. It's most of them usually have a US component to it.
Yep. 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 So, but you put yourselves out as a global investment bank, and you are. I mean, you're doing that. Where do you let's talk about your team then. Are they mostly? It sounds like when you were going over your description of your offices, sounds most of your offices are U.S.
Yeah.
Based offices.
Yeah.
Is your team international? How is your team broken down, and where are they
Yes.
coming from?
Yeah, we've got a couple of folks in Ghana. We've got a couple of folks in India, and then the rest of us are here in the US. We've got 8 or 9 MDs who are client facing, handling transactions for the clients, and then the rest of us just do whatever we got to do to support them to make sure that they're getting the resources they need to do what they have.
Right. So 8 or 9 MDs and are they all transactional?
Yeah.
All transactional and
Yeah.
I guess transactional administrative. Is everybody back? By the way, is everybody back in the office or do you know?
We've got some folks who are in the office and then we've got some folks who are working remote. And we've been pretty flexible about that as far as the senior folks. With the junior folks, I mean, we're still flexible. When the occasion arises if they need to be at home, we're okay with it. But we think it's important that they're in the office sitting next to somebody that they can learn from. So most of our guys are in the office, but again, not everybody. Some folks are.
And most of your team, are they coming from bulge brackets or you're pulling them from management consulting where you're
All over the place.
okay.
All over the place. We've got an MD that was at, Cohen and Company. We've got an MD that was at Rabobank. We've got an MD that was at Credit Suisse before. We've got a couple that are from management consulting. It's all over the place. We just look for guys who are tenacious and have problem solving skills. And most importantly, have a bedside manner that takes the client's objectives and interests at heart.
Yeah.
Most folks in our business are technically very proficient and can look at a term sheet and dissect it, can help create a good structure and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's almost always about the numbers. And we take a different view where we do all those other traditional things of looking at the numbers and figuring out how and where and what the best structure is and all that stuff. But we take a more personal interest in what our clients' objectives are outside of money, outside of, I want to sell my company for as much money as I can. I just firmly believe that nobody works for money. No good people work for money anyway. They work for the things that the money allows them to do.
Right. Right.
So we take a very keen interest in what those things are and helping using whatever transaction we're working on for the client to help them accomplish those things. So we focus a lot more on that than just crunching the numbers, although we have to do that as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we pull our talent from all over the place, but that being the most important thing to us is just making sure that we've got folks who have that bedside manner and take that interest in the client's personal objectives.
So I would say, Guyanese, Gu Guyanese
Yeah.
American or something like
Ghanaian, Ghanaian.
Indian. Indian. Okay.
Okay.
No, yeah, I went to that. That's another country. That's another country. So apologize about that.
That's all
Now,
right.
does for you, I mean, as one of the founders of Madison Street, does diversity, background, does that matter to you? Does it, there's not many people of your background running these larger boutique. And I say
Right.
larger because 75 is a big firm. When I think boutique, I think maybe 20-ish. So you're about, four times, kind of four times that size. Does that matter to you? Or look, we need people who can work, right?
I look across our firm and it's pretty diverse. We've got folks that look like me in key senior places. We've got women who are in key executive positions. We don't make an effort at it. It just is.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it just is because of me, but we don't make an effort at it. We just want to find good people and we don't care where we find them or where they come from. And because we take that approach, we just end up having a really diverse group of people anyway, because we have no hangups.
Yeah.
We don't want our shop to look one way or the other. We just want good people.
Yeah. I think that has a lot to do with your leadership, right? You care and don't care, I think.
Right.
Which is right, which is it sounds like, and again, I don't want to put words in your mouth. It sounds like I really want the best people and I don't care what they look like
Right.
versus I care what they look like and I want to get the best people. Whereas if you care what they look like, you might not get the best people, right?
Right.
Care what they look like first versus I want to get the best people and I don't care what they look like.
Yeah. I
Right.
just want to get the best people. I don't care what they look like. They just end up looking right because, our firm is not all black. It's not all white. It's not
Right.
all Asian. We've
Right.
got everybody. It's not all men. It's the leadership is not all men. It's very diverse.
Right.
And,
If you look for leadership, if you just look for that, you'll find it in everybody, right?
everyone.
Right.
Yeah,
And so,
right.
so there's a nuance which actually surprised myself because it's hard to articulate these things unless you're in a conversation.
Right.
But it's inspiring because it's like if you really just hire on the merits and you're totally colorblind on it, you will get a diverse group, right, of people.
Exactly. My criteria is really simple. I only want to work with people who are smarter than me.
Well, I say that to everybody, and that's a lot of people.
Yeah. No, I only want to work with people who are smarter than me, knowing that I'm no slouch myself.
Right.
Right. If I'm comfortable with people who are smarter than me around me and I listen to them, we just do better. Because I don't care where the ideas come from, as long as they're good ideas. And the only way you get good ideas is having people who are smarter than you around you all the time.
Right. Right. A
Yep.
lot of people are intimidated by that, right? And a
Yeah.
lot of people don't wanna they hire down, right, rather than hiring up. Just on your team again, because do you hire directly from colleges, universities, or do they have to have a sort of a few years of Wall Street or management consulting?
We do both. We do both. At the junior level, honestly, we don't care if they have any experience because we'll teach. And then as you get higher up the ranks, if we're going to hire, we tend to hire folks with experience. If we're hiring a managing director, we're hiring somebody with experience. We're not hiring somebody, um,
And hopefully a book of business too, right? A book of
right, right. Right. So, but we'll do both. And, for a good long while, we had a reputation as being one of the best training shops because we'd hire kids fresh out of college, we'd teach them, and then others would come and coach them.
Yes.
but, but that's not unique to us. That's just the nature of the
Now
beast.
that kind of happens. Well, I'll give you an opportunity, sort of a little bit of a pitch for Madison Street, as well as to have people inspired to kind of, work for you. Is what types of people do you look for, quantity, quality, I guess, in experience and in background? And two, why should they work and seek to work at Madison Street?
Okay. What type of people we look for is kind of hard to define in that, we're not the kind of shop where if you didn't go to Harvard or Yale or Brown, you won't get in the door. We're looking for young, smart, hungry, and eager to learn folks early on. And then the same kind of characteristics at the senior level too, just a little bit older, right? And we find that when we're interviewing, we look for folks that we think we can work harmoniously together with. I look at my job really simply as getting, and I learned this from my management consulting days, getting a group of people to work harmoniously together. So I'm trying to find quality people who technically can do the job, but also, again, like we talked about, have the temperament to work in a team environment. Most investment banks are all about every man for himself. Everybody's trying to make a name for themselves and move up the ladder. And it's always at the expense of other people. The interactions are usually a zero sum game. They're fiefdoms and they protect their relationships, their models and all that stuff. And we don't do any of that. We're 100% a meritocracy. There's no politics. Butt kissing doesn't get you anywhere in our firm. It's how well you do the job, how well you interact with your colleagues, how much of a teammate you are gets you the recognition and the progress. And if one managing director is working on a deal and another MD's got a relationship that's going to help them get that deal done, they're going to share that relationship. If they have an experience if an MD's having a challenge in the deal and another MD's had that experience before and they found a way to work around it, they're going to share that work around. And it's very collaborative. So our folks enjoy working with us and we don't turn over at the senior level at all because of that. And it's just a fun place to work. And at the junior level, they get to learn from a variety of folks with different backgrounds and different styles and different experiences. And it just makes it a fun place to work where we think we're good, fun people as well as serious people when it comes to the business. And I think most of our folks enjoy working, working the work environment, which is why they don't go anywhere.
So give us an example. And many of our listeners are others who, I guess, run investment banks and, look at you and like, wow, how did he get to where he got? And I think a lot of it is because of is your team, your culture, and the people at the top, right? Namely,
Right.
give us an example of maybe one of the things you do that focuses on on the merits and not the politics. I hear that. I hear that.
Right.
But what practical thing do you do that says, hey, it's not about politics, it's merit, and this is what we do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis that just focuses on the merit. And then as a backup to that, you also said you have a lot of fun. Just say that, and fun builds into the culture. So maybe an
Right.
example of the what you do with your team to have quote unquote fun.
Right. Look, the merits are real easy. We're an investment bank and it's all about results and you can't hide the results, right? It's, if those things are just easy to measure, even if you're the analyst building a model, when you deliver the model, it's either done properly or it's not done properly. If you're the MD leading
Right.
the transaction, you're either executing them or you're not. So those things are just really easy to measure. And that's what we look at. We look at, are you getting the results? Number one. And number two, if you've got a skill set that's helpful to your colleague, are you being a team player and providing that assistance? And those are the only two things that we look at. We want folks who are team players, who are willing to roll up their sleeves and get their hands dirty and help the next guy, if that's what it means, and then to
Are
execute.
you doing that through are you doing that through annual reviews, monthly reviews, or deal by deal reviews? How are you,
Generally
you
annual and
know,
biannual reviews, especially at the mid and lower levels of the firm. And with the MDs, all our MDs report directly to me. So I'm talking to them all the time about what they're doing and how they're doing it and where they can improve. So that's almost constantly happening, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're managing the managing directors. Um, you're also doing deals though, right? You're still doing
No, I'm
deals or
not.
you don't do deals?
No, no, I'm not.
Okay.
Just running the firm.
Okay. Okay. All right. That's enough to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what do you guys do for fun then?
It used to be we'd get out as a group once in a while, depending on which office I was in. I'd take a few folks out and have a few drinks here and there. As I'm getting older, I'm doing less and less of that. But
Well, they
when
miss you, Charles. They miss you. They miss you. You look like a fun guy.
I'll give you a perfect example. A few weeks ago, we had some of our guys in our Sarasota office for a meeting, and we'd planned to spend all day Friday and all day Saturday meeting. And we actually got the bulk of what we needed to do on Friday, done on Friday. And on Saturday, what we did instead of, sitting in the office, my business partner took everybody out on his boat and we spent the day on the water, found a place where we could pull the boat up and grab some food to eat. And we just had a good time, just spending time with each other, catching up on our personal lives and what we're doing. And we didn't talk shop once on Saturday.
What's
And
your business partner's name is
his Anthony Marcella,
Marcella. Okay.
Anthony Marcella,
And he's in the Sarasota office,
based
right?
in Sarasota. Yeah. He's
Okay.
based in
I
Sarasota.
just want to know where I wanted to know his name and because he owns the boat. So when we
Right.
go,
Right.
up to
Yeah.
ask.
It's a good thing when you've got a friend who has a boat, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, and our guys really appreciated the fact that they weren't sitting in the office and we were just really taking the time to spend with them and catch up with them on a personal level as opposed to just work. We did get the work done.
Yep.
But we also made time to spend with them and they really appreciate it. So,
Yeah.
those
Do
are
you
the kind
do
of
do you
try to
do
do.
a firm wide thing or did you used to before COVID or
Yeah.
when
So we used to do 3 firm-wide meetings. Well, no, we do 3 partial meetings, and then at the end of the year, every year, we'd get everybody together, before COVID. We haven't done it since COVID. We haven't gotten everybody together since COVID. I think this might be the first year that we do that. We've just been talking about it.
All right. All right. Well, maybe you can make it at the Leadership and Dealmaking Summit when you come over in September, do something in New York. I'd like to transition. Thank you for that because I don't think most sort of things you talk about are sort of the industry and what's going to go on, and we're going to get to that now. But to talk about how your firm works and the culture and everything is, I think, very very fascinating and interesting. And I hope you enjoyed talking about it. And I hope, yeah, it sounds like you're proud of it. But congratulations on sounds like a very successful firm. Obviously, you've been winning quite a few M&A Advisor awards for the last decade or so. So certainly congratulations on that. So we're going to transition now to where you kind of think the industry is going from a global basis. And then, going to wrap up with some sort of emerging leader advice that you can give, some sort of mentorship you can give to our listeners. So where do you think some of the important lessons you learned running a global M&A firm you potentially could share with our audience?
Well, the first thing is patience and then not to prejudge any situation, which is really easy to do. It's really easy as you gain experience and you see certain things and certain trends in business, regardless of what industry you're in. It's easy to assume that what you're looking at is just going to fit neatly into one of those boxes that you think. And a lot of times they don't. And so it's really important to be open-minded as you approach a potential client, a potential transaction, a potential hire. I think it's just a good way to live your life, personal or business wise. But I think those are the most important things that I've learned over the years is just staying open-minded and, you know, taking the inputs as they are and then analyzing it as they are, as opposed to trying to fit it neatly into one bucket or the other because
Yeah, no, that's
uh,
very, especially internationally, right? Globally, you think culturally, this is the way they do things, right? It
Right.
may or may not be. Do you have an example
Yeah. I
of
mean, I
of
was,
something like that? Yeah. Go
yeah,
ahead.
I'll give you a perfect example. I was, telling you earlier that we sold a business for a client that was based in India. It was a pretty significant transaction. EBITDA multiples were in the high teens, really nice company. And we generated a lot of interest initially from US private equity, right?
Yeah.
And then they realized that the operations are in India. And then all of a sudden it's wah, wah, wah. And
Right.
these preconceived notions of what the business is
Right.
India, as opposed to getting under the hood and getting a real understanding of it. And
They might have to take a flight to India. Oh, oh gosh. Oh my gosh.
what a terrible thing to have to do, right? But yeah, it's,
Isn't
you
that
know,
what they pay their what isn't that what their LPs pay them to do? You know,
so I'll give you a personal example, which is still India. So India has been on my wife's bucket list forever. She always wanted to go. And every time she'd bring it up, I'd always say, nope, not interested. Why? It's too crowded. It's too dirty. It's this, it's that. I just don't want to go. And she's like, but you're from Ghana. I'm like, yeah, I know. I still don't want it. And then I went to India for work. We were back at Houlihan Spedwood. We were looking at setting up an office over there. And I went to India and came back. And my wife says, so how was it? And I said, I absolutely loved it. And she's like, what did you like about it? It's too busy. It's too crowded. It's all the things that in my mind were a negative were actually a positive.
yeah,
It's a cacophony of influence. It's New York City on steroids
yeah.
times a million.
Well,
And
there. Where did
yeah,
you go? Where did you go and what year was that?
I went to Delhi
Yeah.
and I want to say it was like 2006.
Okay. A
Um,
lot of things have changed.
yeah, but I'm telling you, I was blown away. It was just, I was in awe of the people and their hustle and the
Yep.
work ethic, and the food was fantastic and they were warm and welcoming. And we went all over. We went, we
And that
did a little,
that's real Indian food.
yeah, exactly. And quite frankly, my close-mindedness about it, if I hadn't been forced to go for work, I would have never gone and I would never had that experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that's one of the reasons that that lesson right there taught me, don't prejudge anything.
Yeah.
Have that experience first, be open-minded about it, and then you can make a decision, but don't go in making assuming things.
I tell my children, and we do this as a practical matter as well when we go on vacation, you learn so much by traveling internationally, how other countries live. And not only, going to India, the Philippines or a third world, but, you know, even
Anywhere.
yeah, anywhere, right? Europe, anywhere in Europe. And you learn there's a lot of history over there. They always a lot of the Europeans are like, you Americans, you're celebrating 220 years of history. We got like thousands of years history.
Right.
Like, so what happened? Let's swing back to the company that you were selling. You had a lot of private equity that were interested. And once they found out the operations and they had to do some due diligence, get on a flight to India. What ended up happening there?
We ended up selling to a strategic buyer out of India.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was a publicly traded company out of India that ended up buying it. There were a handful of US based PE firms that were there at the end. But initially, like I said, when we first started marketing, there was a ton of interest and then it dwindled really fast as they realized what the dynamics of the business were.
Yeah.
That's really disappointing. But then again, it was also a good thing but by the end, it was only the really high quality, very serious folks that were there having a
Yep.
conversation. Is
Yeah.
really where you want to get to anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, listen, I was about to say, I was about to ask you, what would you have done differently? But you sold the company. So there's nothing.
Yeah.
Then you succeeded. You
Yeah,
succeeded at
yeah.
doing what you had to do, right? With that. Where do you think the sort of, you know, global M&A, market is going towards? I mean, still 85, you are global. I mean, 15 to 20% of your your business is that, but it's uh, eh, 80 to 85% is Canada, US. I mean, do you
Right.
see a shift in that? Are you focused on increasing sort of your international? Do you see more cross-border type things where private equity is gonna invest in a lot of these international companies? Do you see any of that?
Um, we're not making a conscious effort to increase or change that dynamic. It's just kind of happening organically. One of my MDs who's based in Ghana is your classic quintessential international investment banker. So he's a former Solomon Smith Barney guy. He started his career at Booz Allen. He's born and raised in Ghana. He worked, for me when I was running the advisory firm, in the management consulting firm. And then he went to the World Bank and he was at the IFC, which is the International Finance Corporation. It's the mezzanine arm of the World Bank. And they posted him to Africa. I forget what his title was, but he was responsible for financial services in sub-Saharan Africa. He was making the investment decisions. And so he's really attuned to the market. And he just called me last week and he's working on a transaction that's actually a really sizable transaction coming off the continent. One of the other gentlemen in Ghana also has got a transaction that he's working on out of the Gambia, which is a pretty sizable transaction. So we get to see these things. Like I said, one of our clients that we've done multiple transactions with approached us about a month ago and asked us to sell a division out of the Philippines. These things just because we've done international deals and because, when we do work for a client, although most of the time we're selling their business and they're moving on and they're going away, a lot of times they're serial entrepreneurs and they start something else. And if it's got an international dynamic to it, they come back to us. I don't see that percentage growing, shifting much, but I see it staying pretty much the same.
Yeah. So, but
For
strategically, when you're running your company, you're not gonna quote unquote chase after or market that sort of more international deals, if you will. You're gonna just
no more so than we're doing now. No more so than we're doing now. And when we're representing a client on the sell side, we don't care where the buyer comes from. When we go to do the research, to put together a target list, we're looking at all potential buyers that we think are capable of, would be interested in and are capable of buying our client's business. And we don't care if it's down the street in Connecticut or Boston, or if they're in London, or if they're in Melbourne, Australia. We really could care less.
yeah.
If they're in Phuket, Thailand, we don't care. As long as it's a good bit and it makes sense for a client, we're going to go after them. We're going to look for them.
And
That helps.
you said most of the work is, or what you do is sell side. You're doing capital raise or doing the debt or helping with the debt, um, for the sale. Are you doing
Um,
any?
Most of the time we don't have to because we're representing the seller. So we don't have to help with the capital raise for the transaction. We
But you're
answer.
also not doing capital raise, right? Are you doing some of that?
We're doing very little that we don't like to. The only time we get excited about doing a capital raise is if we believe that it's ultimately going to lead to a sell side mandate for that client. And
Right.
we've got a couple of clients like that right now that we've completed capital raise transactions for them. We're working on follow-on transactions. And the idea is to ultimately get them to a place to sell the business. We've evolved into wanting to just be a sell side shop. And that's been our focus.
Yeah.
And we're pretty happy with the way it's turned out.
And for as far as your marketing is it sounds like it's a lot of word of mouth, right? And maybe what else? Do you go to a lot of conferences, events? You're coming to the summit in September, getting the word out about Madison Street. What do you do for marketing?
We actually don't do a ton of marketing. Obviously, we've had this sponsorship relationship with you guys for a while that we're looking at even really picking up again. Our MDs get out to events.
By the way, I highly recommend you do that.
Our MDs get out to events and network, personally, as I said, the
Like
bulk.
you go to like ACG events. or
Um,
industry events? What are you doing?
as a company, we don't go to ACG events. Our individual MDs who like to spend time there will do that. We don't sanction it as a company. And the bulk of our business really at this point, I'm going to say probably 80% of our new business comes from the bulge bracket partners that we have.
Got it. Got it. So being on that platform is very important, that you've
Yeah,
working on.
it's been very valuable to us.
Yeah.
And outside of the bulge bracket, we've got some of the larger asset management firms as partners too. Alliance Bernstein is a partner. You know, Raymond James, Carey Street Partners, and
Yeah.
you've got several of those.
Those partnerships sounds like you're marketing right there.
Yes.
So,
Yes. And
you
I
know,
spend a lot of my time building and developing those
yeah.
relationships.
Well, congratulations on that. I mean, we were way over time, which is great. I'm so thankful of your time, Charles, and your busy schedule. We talked about mentorship. We'll end with that for our emerging leaders or people who are looking for leadership. Any important insights you can share to some of our young emerging leaders about successful deal making, perhaps in particular, in deal making across borders or internationally that you'd like to share?
Yes. Again, I think that as folks embark on a career, they're going to learn the basics of modeling and working with P&Ls and financials and all those things. And as they advance, obviously that stuff gets a little bit more technical and some folks are better than others, but overall, they're going to learn those skills. I think to build a career, a long and sustaining career, you have to continue to learn and evolve and grow and be willing to change. And this industry in particular is but really typically resistant to change. And there's the old adage that you're either growing or you're dying. There's no in between. Again, it's one of my lessons from management consulting. It applies to business and it applies to individuals as well. You're either growing or dying. And anybody who's embarking on a career in investment banking wants to make sure that they're constantly growing. And the way you help do that is to continuously educate yourself, to align yourself with folks that are doing well. So spend your time with successful people who are doing what you want to be doing. You'll pick up tidbits and enhance your learning. And just by being around those things, you get opportunities that end up falling in your lap and helping you advance your career or advance a transaction.
So it sounds like for a practical aspect of that is mentorship, right? Find your mentor, find your mentors, right? Embrace your mentors, find people that you can work with. It sounds like you've had some mentors. I
Yeah,
was
I've had, I've had,
and
I've
those.
had a few. The very first one I had was when I was in college. I took a job just to make some money selling encyclopedias.
Door
And
to door? Yeah, I have had a friend who did that too. Yeah.
yeah, Encyclopedia Americana. I learned more about life in that job than I could have anywhere. I learned to sell. I learned how to interact with people.
How about
And,
rejection?
and
Doors
yes,
slammed in your
you
face.
learn to deal with that too, which is a big, big, big lesson. And the guy who hired me and taught me the job, GW Smith, is this big giant of a man from North Carolina. And he would always make a joke about how he was just a hillbilly redneck from North Carolina. And I will tell you that this guy was just as comfortable in a pair of jean overalls sitting at some trailer eating barbecue in the backwoods of North Carolina. And you put him at a black black tie dinner at the White House, and he was just as comfortable there, having a conversation with anybody. He was humble, and he could talk to the guy on the street and sit with the brightest minds in the world and still communicate with them. And he and I have stayed friends to this day. When I have a challenging day, I pick up the phone and I call him. And if I have a challenging moment, I pick up the phone and I call him. And I know what he's going to say to me, but I need to hear it anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
So you still keep in contact with him then?
yes, he and I still talk. Richard Houlihan. Richard Houlihan is been a really good mentor to me. He and I still talk, but his mind is incredibly sharp. And that man has some really fantastic experiences and he's always willing to share. And again, he and I still talk. So yes, finding a good mentor and build a good relationship with them
Yep.
is really valuable in continuing to grow and continuing to learn. And like I said, I firmly believe that you're either growing or you're dying, no in
Yeah.
between.
Yeah. Wonderful. Charles, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts or additional insights you'd like to share with our audience?
No, I mean, look, we're out there fighting the good fight. We're doing good work for our clients. We love representing that lower end of the middle market and helping those folks take their life's work and turn it into a significant liquidity event that sets them up either for the rest of their days or for the next mountain that they want to climb. We are passionate about it. We're passionate about the folks that we work with, and we look to continue doing that. And hopefully, as we grow, we get to add strategically some more quality people to the team to continue to do that work for our
Yeah. Well, listen, Charles, thank you for sharing your valuable insights with us today. It's been incredibly illuminating to hear about your experiences and your background and the lessons you've learned and how you got to where you've gotten. Those stories, there are a lot of them, but in our industry aren't heard as much as they could and should be heard, especially for our emerging leaders that you've gained through the journey through your business and your life. So we'll see you at the 2024 Leadership in Dealmaking Summit on September 23rd and 24th.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. We'll certainly, have additional conversations. I want to thank our audience for listening to our podcast. That concludes our conversation with Charles Botchway, the founder and CEO of Madison Street Capital. And get ready for more thought-provoking conversations in our upcoming episodes. I'm Roger Aguinaldo signing off. Until next time, keep thriving, keep learning, and keep making the deals that matter. Happy dealing. We hope you enjoyed this episode and learned something new from it. If you have any questions or comments for us or any of our guests, please feel free to leave them in the podcast platform of your choice or send us an email at editor@maadvisor.com. We would love to hear from you and get your feedback. And if you haven't done so already, please follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and subscribe to our M&A Alerts newsletter at the links in the description or on our website at www.maadvisor.com. This will help you stay updated on the latest M&A interviews and trends and support our podcast to grow and reach more listeners like you. This is Roger Aguinaldo, the creator and founder of the M&A Advisor. Thank you for tuning in and being part of our M&A Advisor community. Until next time, stay safe and happy dealing.